let's do it. All right. The purpose of this video is for 2 to 3 reasons. The first one is to show to people for the pitch, for the sales, if you will, that it is important to do hard stuff. It is important to put yourself through hard activities in any way, shape, or form. It is important to do that early on in life for an extended period of time versus anything else you could be flipping doing. And it's also going to show you, reason 2, how people that are doing an activity that others perceive as hard, why for some people they view it as very, 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 very easy. When other people it's the hardest thing in the world, and how to increase that. So it's a bit about work ethic, a bit about perspective, and just a bit about what other people have done in life to, from my perspective, be extremely successful. So obviously a personal anecdote and a little bit of what I see. So, hard stuff, look at that. Beautiful, I even underline it in my beautiful underlining ability. So, check it out. 90% of America, let's throw out 90% of the world, just for the analogy. Okay, so this is the 90% of individuals that are going about their day-to-day. Let's call this Bob. It's Bob, okay? Bob's got, let's draw a little stick figure. He's got, some legs, some arms. He's got long flowing hair. Bob ain't trying hard. Bob's just going through life. He's just doing his thing, right? Maybe he works at 7-Eleven. Let's call that 7-Eleven Bob, okay? Bob, maybe, he's probably a little bit borderline diabetes, so like probably put a little belly there. He probably shovels down about a handful of fries on the way to work that he had from the day before. He's just kind of grabbing them from the Wendy's bag in the back seat, and he's probably going to buy them again at lunch once he's done with his 3 cups of coffee, and he's probably going to buy a little bit of McDonald's at the end so he could vary his diet because variety is important. So he probably wakes up at about, let's say, 7 o'clock. And then maybe hits the snooze for 7:30, and he goes to work at about 8 when he needs to be there at 8 o'clock on the dot. Doesn't show up early, doesn't show up late, and he's probably miserable, and his sleep patterns vary, diet varies, just, average person, no real goals, no real work ethic, not a lot of substance, not a lot of consistency, if you will, or discipline. Okay, cool, great, love that. Now, let's throw out another guy. Let's say this is Keith. Keith is a part of the 5% people that do hard stuff. Keith's a harder name. So we'll keep Keith, right? Cool, great. Let's say Keith's got a baseball cap. Let's use the analogy, Keith's hardworking middle class. He's an accountant, right? Went to school. He has a good work ethic from college. Let's say he's working 80 hours a week, large quantities, right? Maybe he's waking at 6 o'clock. Probably the diet isn't on tune. He still exercises maybe a little bit, but it's not too consistent compared to Bob, who doesn't exercise for nothing, okay? And so what he's doing is he's going through some more strenuous activities, and he's doing it for a longer period of time. So let's just say that Keith, all of a sudden, with his previous activity of going through college for accounting, all of a sudden he decides to take that work ethic that he's been working on for the past 5 years, building it up, and he decides to do, he wakes up at 7 o'clock. Keith's been waking up at 6 or 5 o'clock for the past 5 years. Waking up at 7 o'clock is easy for him. Doing an average job 40 hours a week when he's been working 80 hours a week, that's easy for him, okay? Maybe Keith's even rolling out of bed and doing push-ups. Even though, that's a physical activity, that's still going to translate in doing something that has nothing to do with physical activity. It's interesting how that works. I'll dive into that a bit more in 2 seconds. But I just want to move this forward. So we're going to make this a bit more extreme, as I like to do with all my videos. So check it out. That's the 3%. I'm going to use a wild analogy. Let's say that is, let's say it's a Navy SEAL. Okay? That 3% right there is a Navy SEAL. What that individual did, okay, he's got legs too. Maybe he's got some flippers, right? We'll throw some flippers on him. Dude's got flippies. He's waking up at 3 o'clock, He's been working out every day for 6 months, graduated a very strenuous program. He's been given a lot of discipline. He's been pushed to the limits. He knows what it's like to not sleep a lot. He knows what it's like to get very hard orders, okay? Take that individual and you put him in Keith's role. We'll call him, what should we call him? That's Rick. That's Rick. It's Navy SEAL Rick. You take Rick, you throw him in Keith's role, all of a sudden, Rick's killing it. Rick's like, oh, this is easy. This is whatever. I don't really care. This is done. Why? Rick's never gone to accounting school. Rick spent most of his time doing heavy workouts, not spending 80 hours in college, but he gets less physical stress and can find these work activities easier. Now, I'm not saying that all of a sudden he can be an accountant. Let's use some common sense. I think you understand the analogy I'm using. It's work ethic and going through hard stuff in life, right? You take Rick, you put him in Busset Bob's position of just working a job 9 to 5, like the most of America is doing. He's gonna have no problem doing that. It's gonna give him no stress. Now, why, when Rick goes to this job and he works that until the day he dies, gives him like no stress? When this guy, it just gives him massive stress. Why? It's because there's nothing to refer it to. There's no perspective, and there's been no prior work ethic created. If you do something extremely hard for 6 months, it doesn't matter what it is. You're gonna get used to it. I don't care if it is something as extreme as being in prison for 6 months and being fed cockroaches. It doesn't matter if you are spending 6 months and you are filthy rich and you are worth $100 million and you think that's the most amazing life ever. You spend 6 months as a millionaire, it's gonna be the norm. You spend 6 months absolutely homeless and having barely any food to survive and just eating scraps, people get used to it. They mentally shift, and that's just the norm, okay? Dive into that more in a second as well. Now let's go to 1 to 2%. Let's call that Nick. Nick is an Olympian, because I think it's the best example ever. Nick is part of the 1 to 2% of the human race that has such extreme work ethic, such extreme drive. Dude's been waking up and doing push-ups, probably like fucking 1,000 push-ups for the past 10 years. Ever since he was a little kid, his father probably groomed him just climbing ropes. Okay, found his passion. Something in him is just firing off, and he could just work like crazy. You take that individual, for lack of a better analogy, by the way, I hope you see where I'm going with this. You take Nick, you put him in this role, right? The Navy SEAL. And that's not that stressful for him. Isn't that crazy? Because you take this individual, you put him in that role, oh no, that's not gonna happen. No, Bob will lose it. Bob will not be able to handle that at all. You take Keith, you put him in there, can't handle it, okay? Because they haven't been slowly upgrading their work ethic and the amount of misery and suffering and discipline that they've been going through over the years to get there. It's simple. So when you put in that sacrifice temporarily, and get years is temporary, by the way, because then you could pick up the fruit of the labor of the seeds that you put in. You can then be that guy at the top, and then come, and you don't got to be Bob. You could just be this guy. You could be one of the elites. Okay? You could do, let's use a couple better analogies. Let's say you are running triathlons, okay? And you sacrifice your weekends. There's no more drinking. There's no more drugging if you're doing that. There's no more fast foods. And your weekends are studying for your job. Let's say your job is sales. And let's say that you also want to prioritize your physical life as well. Now you're training for a triathlon, an endurance sport. Keyword endurance. And on top of that, let's say you're taking care of your diet, okay? All of a sudden you get on some form of a diet. It's good for your health. And let's say you continuously, good sleep, good massage, whatever the heck it is you're doing, you do it for a consistent 5 years, okay? And maybe even add some more along the way. And then let's say you tone it down just a little bit. You finally tone it down. Now all of a sudden, instead of being in Olympian status, doing 1,000 push-ups a day, maybe now you're just doing 50. Maybe it's doing 20 push-ups just for maintenance. How much easier do you feel that your life would be having gone through these strenuous activities? If you had done a marathon, something that many people think is a very, very hard thing, okay? How much easier your life would be? Let me give you a perspective right now. There are individuals out there, let's think David Goggins, for example, runs 200 miles plus consecutively. Pissing blood, broken bones, kidneys failing. He just keep going. His mind just tells him to. Because we don't understand what we're capable of, right? But he put himself through it. So because of that, being part of the 1%, it's easy to be a part of the 3%. Easy. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine having put yourself through that much? Use whatever word you want to use. You don't want to use my words: suffering, sacrifice, discipline. Come up with your own word. Okay, cool, great. But imagine having put yourself through the experiences necessary to be a part of that. And then you could spend the rest of your life, because you've shaped the brain, because you made those sacrifices, chilling. Not as much cortisol is being excreted because you decided to train to do a few marathons. It doesn't have to be crazy if you don't want to be the 1%. Not everyone wants to be the 1% or the 3%. But goddamn, man, just don't be Bob. Because that's miserable for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. Because if you spend all your life like right here, you just have the same diet, no consistency, you're gonna be miserable, man. Human beings need variety. Human beings need to be challenged. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter who your goddamn parents are, it doesn't matter how much you hug as a child, it doesn't matter what the heck is going on. You need variety, you need some form of challenge. Okay? So, the point of this video is to hopefully give a good, solid pitch on why people should put themselves in hard situations daily, consistently, whatever it is, whatever your definition of hard is. For me, I love the analogies of exercise. I think exercise is, a whole other video, how great it is, putting yourself through very challenging physical activities, marathon, swimming, Ironman, okay? For you, maybe it's yoga class. Maybe you're obese, and that's a simple start. And you know what? I used to be 300 pounds. True story. Lost 100 pounds once upon a time. That was my version of very hard. Maybe your version of very hard is you put the Cheetos bag down. You stop eating Cheetos. Okay? You just stop cutting out all the bad foods. And you slowly upgrade from Bob to Keith. Right? Maybe that's the way your brain operates. Maybe that's the way that you best are able to cope with your desire to be a part of that. Is through slow improvements. Some people, they can only do it through huge improvements. They just need to cut everything out, go on a heavy diet. They need to be extremists. And they're like, I'm going to do a marathon. I'm going to train for a marathon. I'm 300 pounds. That's the way I did it personally. I lost 100 pounds in I think less than 6 months. Certain people, they got to go all in. And it's the only way their mind can comprehend it because they feel like they're getting so many results. Some people, they can't do it. But again, to loop it back, the purpose of the video is to show you, take a few years, take 6 months, take 3 months. Just do hard stuff. Just pick a hard habit. Do it. Stick with it consistently. Okay? Through doing that, increase your anterior midcingulate cortex part in your brain that has the capacity, gotta learn to speak English, to handle hard things. You can go through the rest of your life and things are not as hard. Whatever you choose to do. Get a new job, start a business, get a spouse. I think that's worth it, man. I think that's worth going through some really, really hard stuff as a man or a woman in order to spend the rest of your life not feeling the same amount of stress that other people are feeling because they didn't put themselves to the work. So, it's my argument. Do with it what you will.